Ein hammered the cobblestones of the northern coast as a lone carriage climbed the hill toward Greythorn Manor. Inside, Elena Marin clutched the handle of her modest satchel, the scent of sea salt and damp wool clinging to her dress. The letter in her pocket, summoning her to serve as cook for the Duke of Greythorn, had felt like a miracle when it arrived. Yet now, faced with the manor's looming turrets, it felt more like a summons to another world. The great door opened before she knocked. A tall, broad-shouldered man stood framed in lantern light. His black coat was simple for a noble, but the way he held himself, an air of command softened by grief, betrayed his station. "You are Mistress Marin?" His voice carried the hush of a winter sea. "Yes, your grace." Her own voice trembled as she dipped her head. "I am Rowan Albrecht, Duke of Greythorn.
My son is ill.
The household is small. Privacy is precious. You will find the kitchen to your left." He stepped aside, the faint scent of wood smoke and rain following him. Elena curtsied, aware of his gaze, steady yet unreadable. The kitchen was warm and orderly, though clearly unused for weeks. As she unpacked her knives and herbs, a faint cry echoed through the stone corridors. She turned to find a boy of 8, pale as moonlight, standing barefoot.
"I'm Thomas," he whispered.
"Are you the new cook?" "Yes, and I'll make you stronger," she said, offering a gentle smile. Later, as she stirred a pot of broth, she sensed the Duke watching from the doorway. His eyes, storm gray, touched with sorrow, lingered on her hands, the steam rising like ghostly breath between them. "Thomas needs warmth more than medicine," she said softly. "Food is comfort when words fail." He inclined his head, something almost like gratitude flickering across his face.
"Perhaps," he murmured.
That night, Elena lay awake in her small attic room, the memory of his eyes haunting her more than the wind howling off the sea. She told herself it was only worry for the boy. Yet the warmth she felt was far from mere duty.
Days stretched into weeks.
Elena's cooking revived the manor, the scent of fresh bread mingled with the salt air, and Thomas's cheeks grew rosy. Each evening, Rowan joined them in the kitchen, a simple act that unsettled the staff and whispered through the stone halls like a scandal. One winter dusk, he lingered after Thomas had gone to bed. Elena scrubbed the oak table, aware of his nearness. "You've changed this house," he said quietly.
"And my son."
She looked up, meeting his gaze. "He only needed care, as did you." Silence pooled between them, broken only by the crackle of the hearth. "You speak boldly for a servant," he said, though his tone held admiration, not reprimand. "I speak as a woman who sees a man who grieves," she replied. His eyes darkened. "My wife died 2 winters past. I vowed never to feel this again." The confession hung in the air like a fragile glass. Elena's heart thundered, but she whispered, "And yet you feel it now." He stepped closer, the faint scent of cedar and storm on his coat.
"It is forbidden," he said.
"You are my cook. I am a duke. The world would not forgive." "Then let the world never know," she breathed. For a heartbeat they stood, the firelight painting their faces in gold and shadow. He brushed a strand of hair from her cheek, fingers trembling, then turned away. "Good night, Mistress Marin," he said, voice rough. When he left, the kitchen seemed colder. Yet a single ember of desire glowed within her, fierce and impossible to quench. Spring thawed the coast, but within the manor, tension sharpened like a drawn blade. Rumors had reached the village. The widowed duke spent his evenings not in the grand hall but in the humble kitchen. One night, as a storm raged, Rowan entered the kitchen soaked from the rain. Elena rushed to dry his cloak, her hands brushing his shoulders. Their eyes met, and restraint finally shattered. He cupped her face, his kiss tasting of salt and lightning. The world outside vanished, only the warmth of his lips, the beat of his heart against hers. "Elena," he murmured when they broke apart, "this cannot continue."
"Yet I cannot stop."
Neither could she. They met in stolen moments, a touch of hands while kneading dough, a whispered promise in the garden shadow. Thomas, oblivious, only smiled more each day. But whispers grew louder. A distant cousin of Rowan's, Lady Beatrice, arrived unannounced. Her eyes swept the kitchen with quiet disdain. "She is only a cook," Beatrice hissed in private. "The Greythorn name cannot be tarnished by a servant's comfort."
Rowan's jaw tightened.
"Elena is more than you could ever understand." Beatrice's lips curled. "The King's Council will not see it so. They whisper already of impropriety." That night, Rowan confessed the threat. "If they force my hand, they will take Thomas from me. They will ruin you." Fear coiled in Elena's chest, but love burned hotter. "Then let them whisper," she said. "I would rather face ruin than deny what we are." He pulled her close, forehead to forehead. You are braver than any noble I have known, he whispered, a vow hidden beneath the thunder. Autumn flamed across the moors in a blaze of crimson and gold as Alaric tightened the reins and urged the carriage toward the capital. Celeste sat between him and Isabel, her small hand resting trustingly in the cook's palm. The road curved through villages where word of their journey had already spread. Faces turned to watch, some curious, others disapproving, but Alaric kept his eyes fixed on the distant spires of the royal court, his resolve sharpening with every mile. When they reached the palace gates, the late afternoon sun burned low, staining the marble steps in copper light. The crowd waiting there hushed as the black carriage rolled to a stop. A footman opened the door, and Alaric stepped out first, the silver trim of his dark coat catching the light. Isabel followed, her gown a deep, unadorned green that only heightened the natural grace with which she moved. Gasps rippled through the assembled nobles. A kitchen maid stepping from a duke's carriage was spectacle enough. To stand beside him with her head held high was an unspoken defiance of everything they believed immutable. Inside, the grand hall glittered with candlelight and cold expectation. Banners of ancient battles draped the walls, and the scent of beeswax and incense hung heavy in the air. Courtiers in jeweled finery shifted and whispered as Alaric led Isabel and Celeste toward the throne. The king sat beneath a canopy of gold, his eyes sharp and unreadable. Each step on the marble floor echoed like a drumbeat, until the entire chamber seemed to hold its breath. Alaric stopped before the dais and bowed low, the motion deliberate, reverent, unyielding. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice carrying across the vaulted space. "I present Isabel Marin, the woman I choose as Duchess of Harrowmere, and the mother of my child in every way that matters." The room erupted at once. Fans snapped shut, silk rustled, voices rose in a storm of disbelief.
"The cook," someone hissed. "Scandalous," another spat. A jeweled monocle slipped from a viscount's eye and shattered against the stone. At the edge of the crowd, Lady Vivian stood rigid, her face leached of color, fury tightening her mouth to a single pale line. The king raised one hand and the uproar faltered into silence. His gaze swept from Alaric to Isabel and back again, measuring not their titles but the quiet certainty in their stance. Time seemed to stretch into a single unending moment, the air tense enough to break. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of generations. "A true ruler protects the heart of his house. If this woman saved your child, she has saved your line. So be it." The words fell like sunlight through storm clouds. Murmurs shifted from outrage to reluctant awe. Some nobles lowered their eyes, others stared openly, as though the foundations of their world had tilted. Vivian's breath caught audibly, her ambition crumbling like frost beneath the morning sun. Alaric turned to Isabel, and for the first time since his wife's death the solemn duke allowed a full, unguarded smile. Celeste clutched Isabel's hand and beamed, her laughter ringing clear against the vaulted stone. Outside, bells began to peal across the city, their jubilant notes sweeping through the streets and over the rooftops, a proclamation none could ignore. That evening, the palace gardens glowed under a canopy of lanterns. Market squares filled with music and the warm scent of roasted chestnuts. Citizens toasted the duke who chose love over lineage, their cheers carrying on the night air. Alaric and Isabel wandered through the torchlit paths as Celeste darted ahead, her small figure a swirl of white against the dark hedges. "Are you certain?"
Isabel asked when they paused beneath an ancient oak. Her voice trembled with wonder and a hint of fear. "The world will never forget what you have done today." Alaric stepped closer, the cool night brushing against them. "Let them remember," he said, lowering his forehead to hers. "Our love is the truth they could never cage." Stars blazed above them, bright and infinite. He kissed her then, a promise and a defiance, sealing their vow in a silence deeper than any blessing. When they returned to Thornwick Manor, the house no longer echoed with grief. Fires burned in every hearth, bread baked in warm ovens, and the laughter of a child filled every corridor like music. The moors outside lay quiet under a silver moon, but within those old stone walls a new life had begun. One built not on duty or rank, but on a love strong enough to bend the world to its will.